Hey traveler, glad you found your way here. Through the shadowed skies I bring you the ancient goddess who gave birth to sleep, death, and the stars themselves. Nyx, the goddess of night. I will unravel her myth piece by piece into a soothing narration designed to lull you into deep rest. If myths like these help you drift off or escape the noise of the day, consider joining us by subscribing to get a new story every night to fall asleep to. At the very beginning of creation, when all was formless and vast and nothing had taken shape, there came into being a great emptiness called chaos, from which the very first forces of existence emerged. Out of this deep and boundless void came Nyx, the goddess of the night, dark and mysterious, older than time itself. She was not born in the way that things are born today, but simply was, coming into being along with her brother Darkness. From the very first breath of the cosmos, she was there, a shadow over all things, quiet and ever-present. From the union between her and Darkness, the world gained its contrast, for from their closeness were born light and day. Aether, the bright upper air that surrounds the heavens, came into being, radiant and pure, followed by Hemera, the day, who would come each morning to chase her mother's shadow away and brighten the world for a time. But Nyx was not only the bearer of night. Alone and without need of any partner, she gave rise to many powerful and fearsome children, dark spirits who would influence the lives of gods and mortals alike. Among these children were the Fates, who spun, measured, and cut the threads of all lives, giving to each their destined time. She bore Sleep, who brought rest and dreams, and Death, who came silently for all beings when their time was done. She brought forth Strife, who turned hearts bitter and caused quarrels among friends and nations, and Pain, who followed behind sorrow and loss. These spirits, though often feared, were born from Nyx herself and spread throughout the world, shaping its order through mystery, fear, and finality. Nyx was not like the other deities who dwelled on mountains or in palaces. She was vast and boundless, the very veil that covered the sky. When night fell upon the world, it was she who extended her cloak across the heavens, a dark mist that softened the stars and dimmed the brilliance of the day. In her presence, the bright glow of Aether was hidden, and her child Hemera would vanish, only to return when Nyx once again receded into the unseen corners of the cosmos. Though she never ruled with thunder or fire, she was revered, and even the greatest gods held her in awe. So powerful and ancient was she that even Zeus, lord of the skies, respected her presence and avoided angering her, for he knew her place in the order of things was fixed and not to be challenged. In ancient stories and art, she was often shown as a winged goddess, gliding silently through the heavens with soft, powerful motion. Sometimes she was seen as a charioteer, wrapped in a cloak of shadows, riding through the night as stars followed in her path, her face surrounded by an aura of mist. Her beauty was not radiant in the way of sunlight, but deep, still, and endless, like the space between stars. She was a symbol of calm and silence, of everything that the day could not reach. Her home was not on Olympus, but in the dark depths beneath the world, in the shadows of Hades, far from the light, where she moved unseen and untouched. Among the older beliefs, Nyx was not only one of the first beings, but possibly even older than those usually called the first. In some ancient thoughts, she was the daughter of Eros, the very spirit of love and creation itself. This idea showed just how deeply tied she was to the heart of existence. She was not simply a figure of the night, but a force from which many powerful beings came. Without any companion, she gave birth to more children beyond the Fates sleep, and death. Among them were Moros, the spirit of doom who guided fate to its end, the Keres, who hovered over battlefields, Momus, the bringer of blame, Oasis, the spirit of suffering, the Hesperides, who tended the golden apples in the far west, Nemesis, who brought justice and balance, and others who moved in the background of all things, shaping the lives of mortals through quiet and unseen forces. On old carvings and painted objects, Nyx was shown, holding her children in her arms, sleep and death as small boys, resting silently, peaceful and still in their mother's embrace. Her image was once carved by the craftsman Roicus and placed in Ephesus, a quiet reminder of her power and mystery. On the chest of the old ruler Cypselus, she appeared again, not as a terror, but as a protective figure, cradling her. Children who would one day be known by all who closed their eyes at night or took their final breath. Nyx was not just a figure of myth, but a presence that touched every part of the world, even the parts not seen by the sun. She was in the stillness before dreams, the hush that came after twilight, the cool breath of midnight, and the deep silence before dawn. Her child Hemera would rise and scatter her mists at every morning's light, clearing the sky and brightening the air. But Nyx would return again, always faithful, always vast, always watching. She did not speak or roar, but her silence was her voice, and her presence was felt in every corner of the world that turned away from the light. In the most ancient songs that spoke of the world's beginning, when there was no land, no sea, no sky, Nyx was already there. When chaos yawned wide, she was born from it, and with her came the shadows that gave depth to all things. In the deep mythology passed through generations, her place was never questioned, for even the most shining gods understood that without night, there could be no day. Without rest, there could be no strength. Without her quiet, even joy would lose meaning. Nyx, the night, the mother of dreams and destiny, moved unseen yet ever near, shaping the world in darkness as surely as light shaped it in day. And so, from the very first breath of time, she carried her mystery across the heavens, never fading, always returning, eternal as the stars that shone in her cloak. In the beginning, before anything had form or name, there was only the endless void called chaos. From this vast nothingness, the earliest forces came into being, shaping what would one day become the cosmos. Among them was Erebos, the deep darkness, and from their union with Nyx, the goddess of night, the foundation of existence was laid. She was not made of matter as we know it, but was like the breath of shadow itself, stretching across all space. She, with her eternal silence, gave rise to many powers that governed both the visible world and the hidden forces that moved beneath it. It was then that Earth came forth, Gaia, the wide-bosomed one, and from her grew the sky, Ouranos, filled with stars, who wrapped around her from all sides. In another telling, Day was born as the radiant child of time and night, showing how deeply woven into existence night had always been. These stories, passed down through generations, all spoke of Nyx not as a side figure, but as a being whose presence was essential and whose shadow held all things in balance. In a version told through older songs, there was no sky, no land, and no air, only chaos, night, Erebos, and the great pit of Tartaros. Earth and sky did not yet exist. In the heart of this unformed space, black-winged Nyx laid an egg, not of flesh or shell, but of pure potential, deep within the bosom of darkness. Time passed, long and slow, until, after many ages, from this egg came Eros, the shining force of love and motion, He was the first spark that moved the stillness. His wings gleamed gold, and from his being came the stirrings that would lead to birth, growth, and all change. From Nyx also came the stars, those distant lights that pierced her own veil. She gave birth to them as her children, flung across the sky, quiet and watching, shining only when she covered the world in her deep cloak. In these old hymns, they were called her dear ones, born from her and dwelling in her darkness, a reminder that light itself could come from the night. In more ancient songs, it was told that from chaos came Ananke, the force of necessity, and Kronos, the spiral of time, who together brought forth the upper light, Aether, and the being of two forms, Phanes, who gleamed in all directions. Though he shone, it was Nyx who was entrusted with his power. To her was given the scepter of rule, passed into her hands by Phanes himself. In her keeping was the order of things, and with it she held the quiet sovereignty of the universe. With the scepter of Erechopaios, she became not just a mother of gods and spirits, but a queen in the dark, holding the balance before any sun had risen. One old scroll, aged and delicate, told that when Zeus finally came into his strength and claimed the might and fate that was prophesied for him, he inherited from Phanes not just the world, but the very light of Aether. Before him had ruled another, Kronos, the one who had overthrown the sky, Uranos, who was the son of night. From her, that great sky had first sprung, and through him the path was made for time, and then for Zeus, who shaped the heavens anew. In later tales, where the stories of gods and mortals became more entwined, Nyx was seen again. In one place, a dark figure was described, the mother of sleep wrapped in shadows, bound in a black girdle, moving silently. In disguise, Iris once called upon Hypnos, speaking in Nyx's name, reminding him of their shared birth and deep origins from chaos itself. She spoke of Earth, the sister of their father, from whom all were born, including those who lived in the heights of Olympus. It was a reminder that the deep and old powers were never far, and even the Olympians came from them. In one ancient vessel painted in red and black, Nyx and Eos were shown together, night and dawn, one retreating and the other rising. They were not enemies, but part of the same cycle, passing the sky between them. One lowered her misty veil, while the other lifted it to show the bright world. And though they never touched, they worked in harmony, each giving way to the other. Nyx was also called the mother of gods and demons. In the oldest epic, the great poem of battles and pride, there was a moment when Sleep, the brother of death, spoke. He recalled how once he had dared to touch the mind of the highest god, laying rest upon his thoughts. It was during this slumber that Hera stirred the winds and led the god away from his plans. But Sleep hesitated to act again, for he feared the anger that could follow. He remembered how mighty that being was, but also how even he once backed away from Nyx herself. In that memory was a quiet truth. That night, old and black-winged, was one of the few forces that not even the highest of gods would cross. Through all these layers of song, story, and image, Nyx remained constant, never loud or changing, never seeking praise or power, but always present. She was the beginning of all things, the mother of light and motion, the keeper of secrets and shadows. From her came the breath of sleep and the silence of death, the turn of time and the gleam of stars. Though others ruled the day and some claimed the skies, it was Nyx who stood behind them all, veiled and quiet, yet endless and strong. She needed no throne or temple, for the whole night sky was her domain, and her story was written in the space between the stars. But Zeus awakened in anger and stormed through the house of the gods, filled with fury, his power shaking the heavens. His rage was so great that he struck down the gods left and right, not holding back, as he searched for the one who had wronged him. His wrath moved through the halls like thunder, and all trembled at the force of it. But he looked most fiercely for the one responsible, his eyes scanning beyond the rest, burning with fire. In his madness, he might have cast that god from the sky, plunging him far down into the deep sea, had it not been for the intervention of Nyx. She, who held sway over both gods and men, stood between them. For all her stillness and silence, Nyx held a power even Zeus respected. When the one pursued by Zeus reached her in his escape, seeking her as refuge, the Thunderer hesitated. Though the storm within him still roared, he did not cross her. He let the god go, his hand held back by the thought of angering swift and silent Nyx, whose displeasure even he would not risk. She was not only a shadow in the sky, but the mother of things feared and unspoken. From her dark and endless body, without the touch of any other, were born the spirits that haunted the edges of life. From her came Moros, the doom that all must meet, and Ker, the dark force of violent death that came on battlefields and in moments of despair. Thanatos, death itself, rose from her womb, and with him came Hypnos, the gentle bringer of sleep. Together they touched every life, one to close the eyes at night, and the other to close them forever. Dreams too were born of her, countless and shifting, moving through the minds of those who slept, silent and strange. Nyx gave birth again, though no one lay with her. She brought forth Momos, the spirit of blame and mockery, who whispered criticism into the ears of the proud. Then came Oitses, the spirit of misery, who clung to sorrow and walked with grief. From her came the Hesperides, keepers of the golden fruits in the far reaches of the world, bathed always in the light of evening. The Fates were born of her as well, those who spun, measured, and cut the thread of every life, from mortal to immortal. Beside them came the Keres, ruthless death spirits who flew over the fallen and hunted those fated to die. She bore Nemesis, who walked among mortals with a cold and even gaze, bringing balance to pride and punishing those who reached too far. Apate came next, the spirit of deceit, who twisted words and blurred the lines between truth and lies. Philotes followed, the gentle force of union and love. Then came Geras, old age, slow and patient, who waited for all living things. Last came Eris, Strife, the eldest, daughter of Nyx, who scattered conflict wherever she went, setting brother against brother and nation against nation. Nyx was a deep well from which all these beings flowed. Her children were not merely shadows, but truths, woven into the lives of all who walked the earth or ruled the sky. Each bore her mark, quiet, inevitable, unyielding. Some caused fear, others offered peace, but all carried the stillness of night within them. In old songs once sung beside firelight, Nyx was named as the mother of torch-bearing Hecate, though the words had faded with time. Yet in some fragments her name remained, spoken with reverence as the one who had birthed the goddess of crossroads and hidden paths. Her children were not limited to the world above. In the dark chambers beneath the earth, others called out to her. The Erinyes, fierce and ancient, claimed her as their mother. These were spirits of vengeance who heard the cries of the wronged and punished the guilty. In chants and oaths, they named her the one who bore them, the mother who gave them purpose, who formed them from the raw grief of injustice. Again and again they called to her, In times of confusion and betrayal, they cried out, "Mother Nyx," begging her to witness the deceptions of the gods and the failures of justice. She was their source and their strength, the one they returned to when all others had failed them. The Fates too were named her daughters, divinities who divided what was fair and what was not, who ensured that no soul, god, or mortal escaped the destiny written for them. They stood beside the Erinyes, bound by the same mother, working not with thunder but with threads. Not all tales placed sleep among her children, but even in later times, he was seen as part of her dark family. One voice, full of doubt, once claimed that Nyx did not bring forth Hypnos to lull men's souls, but most knew differently, and the stories held fast. He was hers, as surely as death was, and as surely as dreams were. Their forms were different, their paths separate, but all began in her. Poets and painters called the Erinyes her daughters too. They were shown as maidens cloaked in shadow, their eyes glowing with anger. From her came their fire, their sense of right, their relentless grip on those who ran from guilt. They lived beneath the earth in silence, their hearts still tied to the mother who gave them life from darkness. One old traveler, Pausanias, once saw her story carved in wood. On the chest of Kypselos at Olympia, an artist had captured her in stillness. There she stood, a woman holding two children, one pale and peaceful, the other dark and heavy, each sleeping in her arms. One child's feet turned one way, the others in the opposite. No words were needed. Those who saw it knew. The white child was sleep, the black child was death, and the one who held them, watching over both, was night. In another place, far from that carving, there were people who still spoke her name with care. The people of a city believed in her deeply, their stories unchanged by time. She was not distant to them, not only the shadow at the edge of the sky, but the source of forces that shaped their lives. Her story was part of their world, quiet but constant, as steady as the setting of the sun and the rising of the stars. For they knew that before all else, before time and space and gods and men, there was Nyx, silent, dark, eternal. There were those who said that there were not one but two figures known by the name Nemesis, and both, they claimed, were born of Nyx. In some traditions, this was not considered unusual, for Nyx was known to give birth to many forms and forces, often alone and without the need of union. She, being night, was the mother of shadows and the quiet power behind much of the world's unseen movement. In the Roman tellings passed down through the writings of old mythographers, it was said that from the vastness of chaos and the dim mist called Kaligin came the first beings: night, day, darkness, and light. Night, whose Roman name was Nox, was not merely a time of day, but a being as real and as powerful as any who would come after her. From this night and her counterpart, darkness, came a vast family, not of ordinary children, but of forces that shaped the experience of every living soul. From her came fate, who fixed the course of all lives. Then came old age, slow-moving and quiet, yet never pausing. Then death came into being, cold and final, followed by dissolution, the slow crumbling of all things. She brought forth continents, who held back desires, sleep, who offered rest to the weary, and dreams, those silent wanderers of the mind. From her, love was born, known also by other names, but always present wherever heart stirred. She gave form to caution, to wisdom, and to pride. She created both discord and wretchedness. Wantonness followed them, along with the power of divine retribution. She bore joy and friendship, then mercy, and the sacred river Styx. The three fates named Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos also came from her. They were the ones who spun, measured, and cut the thread of each life. She gave birth to the Hesperides, who lived in the golden light of evening, their names remembered as Aegle, Hesperi, and Erica. These were not ordinary children, but personifications of ideas and powers, each shaped by the nature of their mother, and all of them, it was said, were brought into existence by night and darkness, without light, without noise, in the very beginning of time. The Roman philosopher Cicero, in his study of divine nature, spoke of these origins. If the sky was a god, he argued, then so too must be the forces from which it came. For the sky had been born of light and day, and alongside them were many others. The ancient storytellers spoke of love, of trickery, of fear, of toil, and of envy. They named fate again, and old age, death, and the shadows of darkness. They told of misery and of complaint and of friendship. They spoke of fraud, of stubbornness, of the fates, of the Hesperides, and of dreams. All these were said to be the offspring of darkness and night. Either these tales were to be accepted, or none at all, for they came from the same roots, the same old stories carried down through time. Another poet, in the epic tales that reshaped the myths for a new age, called the Dreadful Sisters, born of night, the implacable ones. These were the Furies, also known as the Erinyes, and they did not forgive. They were born in shadow and brought forth only doom. In the story of a hero's journey to the land of the dead, it was said he offered a black lamb as sacrifice to Night, the mother of these fierce goddesses. She was honored there, not with temples or altars under the sun, but in darkness, where her children moved unseen. Elsewhere, it was written that the Furies were born all at once, in the same birth as the terrifying Megaera, and they were all given the same strange features: serpent hair, wild wings, and a look of fury that never faded. Their mother gave them wind-swift wings and the power to pursue the guilty without rest. Their birth was no ordinary thing. It was as if night herself split open to unleash these relentless beings upon the world. In later tragedies written for the stage, a playwright called upon sleep, describing him as the conqueror of sorrow, the quiet part of life, the rest that every soul needed. He was a winged son of night, gentle and slow, yet powerful in his own way. He was also called the brother of cruel death, born of the same dark mother. These two were often pictured together, one bringing the end of toil for a night, and the other bringing the end of toil forever. One story told of how Sleep dared to assist the Queen of the Gods in a plan against the King of the Sky. They tried to lull him into rest so she could act freely. When the king awoke, furious at what had been done, he reached out to punish Sleep, ready to throw him into the darkest pit of the underworld. But then Night intervened. She came forward, calm but powerful, and with her quiet presence, she softened his rage. Even the King of Gods, though angry beyond measure, held back when faced with her. Her power was not in thunder or fire, but in the still silence that could calm storms and shift the will of the mighty. In art, she was not shown with bright crowns or shining robes, but with a veil of black, holding her sons, Sleep and Death, in her arms. One child was pale and soft, and the other dark and cold. Their feet turned in opposite ways, but they both lay quietly in her embrace, watched over by the eternal figure of Night. The people knew who she was, even without the names written beside her. They saw her, and they knew she was the nurse of rest and the guardian of endings. Night was more than just a time or a setting. She was a force, a mother, a beginning. Her children were everywhere, in love and in grief, in justice and in vengeance, in the hush before dreams and the silence after breath. She brought all of them into being, not with noise or light, but in quiet, in shadow, and in the deep stillness from which all life begins and to which all life returns. She was Nyx, mother of so many things the world both feared and needed, and through her the mysteries of night remained eternal. The shining light of the sun dipped beneath the edge of the world, and as it vanished into the great river that circled all lands, black night stretched her veil over the earth. The warmth and brightness of the day faded, and across the wide fields and grain-bearing lands came the slow and steady march of shadow. Night moved without sound, soft and complete, covering everything in her quiet presence. From the heavens to the sea, from the hills to the valleys, she passed in her calm and unhurried way, wrapping the world in her dark embrace. She came not with violence, but with stillness, gently dimming the last golden rays as the stars prepared to blink into view. At the furthest edge of the earth, where sky and land and sea all met, there stood a strange and terrible place. It was a region not touched by life, where even the gods felt a cold discomfort. There, gloomy earth gave way to the misty depths of Tartaros, and the sea, unfruitful and lifeless, met the ceiling of starry heaven. The air was thick and loathsome, filled with damp and shadow. No joy stirred there, no light shone, and even the bravest immortals turned away from it. This was the domain where Nyx made her home, wrapped always in heavy cloud, a place feared and respected by all who knew of it. Near this dreadful threshold stood one who bore a great burden. Atlas, son of Iapetus, stood unmoving, his arms raised high, holding up the vault of heaven. His task was endless, his strength unbroken, and he stood as a sentinel between the realms. It was here, at this very doorway, that two great forces met each day, Nyx and Hemera, night and day. As one approached, the other departed. They passed each other silently, one entering as the other exited, never sharing the space at the same time. The House of Night did not hold them both. While one crossed the sky, the other waited behind the threshold, and so the balance was kept. Night brought with her the silence of Hypnos, the sleep that settled over all beings, and the cold shadow of Thanatos, the presence of death. She held them both close, cradled in a vaporous cloud. She moved with them through her journey, her darkness gentle yet final. And so it was that sleep and death, twin powers, lived within her reach, never seen by the sun. For even bright Helios, the all-seeing, never looked upon that place. When he rose into the sky or set into the ocean, his light never touched the dwelling of night. It remained hidden, sacred, undisturbed. From across the lands of Elysium, far in the realm of peace, there flowed streams of sluggish black, oozing forth the endless gloom of night. These rivers did not move like the living waters of the world above. They were slow and heavy, full of the weight of the underworld. Their surface reflected no light, only the echo of shadow, and from them came the breath of darkness that coated all things in stillness. They moved from the mouth of night itself, spreading across the boundaries of existence, carrying her silence with them. Night was not faceless. In the songs of the old poets, she was named and adorned. She was described with a blue-black headband, the color of deep midnight, rich and full. Her presence was felt not only in the heavens, but in the earth's breath and the turning of the sky. She was seen in the many-eyed embroidery of the night, a tapestry filled with starlight. Her robe, they said, was like a net of silver and shadow, decorated with countless shining marks, each one a star cast from her own hand. As she passed overhead, her garments moved with her, flowing like a river of darkness filled with glimmers of distant light. In other visions, she was seen guiding the Hesperides, those who led the evening toward its close. Driving a chariot drawn by 2 horses, they moved across the sky, leading night into the world. At the place where light met shadow, she passed once more into the eastern sky, ready to bring the new light of day. She flew over the misty waves high above the sea, becoming a guide to sailors, her movement marking the rhythm of time. Her presence in the sky was quiet and golden, touched by flowers and cloud, graceful in every motion. In the tales of war and triumph, night was honored too, after the fall of a great city, when cleverness had brought down walls stronger than stone. The victors praised night. They spoke to her as a kind and faithful power, one who had cast her snare over the towers and gates of their enemies. It was by her shadow that their plans succeeded. Her darkness was not only rest but concealment, and it was within her hidden reach that victory had been born. As the night deepened, her chariot was seen again, racing across the sky. The poet spoke of it moving with haste, drawing darkness behind it. As the stars filled the heavens, it was her car that set their course. She moved them like a conductor moves sound, each star in place, each silence between them meaningful. Her speed was not chaotic, but measured, precise. The world turned with her, the constellations wheeling quietly above. And when the time came for suffering, for punishment, and for the story of chained rebellion, it was again night who held her place. In the tale of the one bound to the rock, where silence met agony, night was invoked as the robe that veiled even the brightest flame. She moved not only through the heavens, but through the hearts of gods, her reach touching both peace and torment. Her robe, they said, was spangled, a tapestry of stars that veiled even the boldest fire. Her movement brought an end to day and a beginning to dreams. Thus she passed each evening, quiet and absolute, bringing with her a hush deeper than sleep. She was not a storm or a blaze, but a rhythm, a presence that could not be stopped. Every being, god or mortal, bowed in her presence, not from fear, but from recognition. She was the space between thoughts, the hush before dawn, the cool breath after heat. Her home was shadow, her children were silence and rest, and her path was written in the stars she cast across the sky. When she came, the world did not resist. It simply slowed and listened, and so she moved, night eternal. In the far west, beyond the lands where mortals dwelled, there was a great river that surrounded the world. This river was vast and mighty, swelling with power, and it was called Okeanos. It was here, at the edge of the known earth, that a golden bowl moved swiftly across the stream, crafted by the god of fire and skill. This bowl belonged to the one who brought light to the world. As the sun sank and its brightness faded from the sky, it crossed this wide river in its vessel, retreating from the land of mortals and fleeing the deep gloom that belonged to holy night. She came with her sable steeds, silent and sure, rising as the sun fell, and with her arrival the world changed its face. Light vanished, and all things were touched by her stillness. In woven cloth, tales were recorded in thread and image. In one such design, the sky was shown filled with stars. The heavens turned, their shapes arranged by the old sky himself. The sun was pictured in its chariot, descending toward its final blaze of the day. Behind it came the evening star, and behind them all was night, wrapped in a dark cloak. She drove a single pair of horses, and in her wake followed the stars, distant lights arranged in patterns that marked time and season. The seven sisters, known for their shining beauty, moved across the middle of the sky, while the great hunter with his sword followed. Above them, a golden-tailed figure moved across the high heavens, all carried forward by the quiet power of night. In another voice spoken on the stage, night was called divine. Her chariot moved slowly, making its way through the vast and star-filled dome. She crossed the realms of the upper air and passed by the heights of Olympus, untouched by the light of day. Her path was not rushed. It was deliberate, measured, and full of grace. Each turn of her wheels marked the passage of hours, and all life beneath her followed the rhythm she set. Evening came. In the far west, past the hills of distant lands, the sun began to lower. It sank beneath the darkening world, its golden light fading. In that moment, Night prepared her team. She harnessed her horses and began her rise, slowly bringing her silence to the earth. As she ascended, the world began to dim. Her shadow stretched across the sky and fell upon the land. Trees stood still, the wind quieted, and the sky turned darker with each breath. Her shadow covered everything, from the tallest mountains to the smallest flowers, and all became calm beneath her. From far away, there was a river known to rise at the world's end. Its source was said to be near the very gates and halls of Night herself. This river flowed in 3 streams, reaching out to the ocean, to the Ionian Sea, and to the far corners of the earth. It was born near her dwelling, a place beyond the reach of light, where her quiet rule shaped the rhythm of nature. From her courts, the waters flowed outward, silent witnesses to her eternal presence. As she descended upon the people, her gentle command settled over the land. Night placed a soft ban upon all activity. The air grew cool, the fields grew silent, and one by one every creature rested. Her arrival was not one of force, but of peace. She did not shout or strike, but instead she laid a hand across the world, and the world obeyed. The stars blinked open above, and the voices of the day fell quiet. Beneath her, dreams took root. She watched from above as life paused, waiting for her to pass again. But the sky did not remain hers forever. From the east came the beams of dawn. Bright and golden, they reached across the sky and touched her darkness. Slowly, they chased her away, scattering the black cloak and lifting the veil she had drawn. She did not resist. As always, she gave way to the light, knowing that her time would come again. Day rose, and night fell back, waiting beyond the edges of sight, unseen but never gone. In the stars, her signs remained. One, known as the altar, sat in the heavens as a warning. It was said that she had placed it there herself, weeping for the pain of men. For those who sailed the sea, it was a sign to be feared. When storm winds gathered and clouds pressed close, the altar glowed in warning. If it appeared alone, unshrouded yet surrounded by high clouds, sailors knew to be wary. It was a message from her, kind in its purpose, but heavy with sorrow. She did not wish harm upon them, but could not stop the sea's wrath. So she gave signs in the sky, hoping they would understand. Her kindness was not loud, but it was real. To those who paid attention, she gave help. She marked the sky with light and pattern, not just for beauty, but for guidance. Mariners looked to her signs, and if they listened, they found safe passage. She kindled signals above the sea, glowing warnings lit in the shapes of constellations. Her sorrow for those lost to storm or darkness was woven into every star. And though she remained silent, her care was written in the sky. When the sky was clear and no clouds touched the stars, her full glory could be seen. The heavens opened wide, and she showed all her lights to the world. Each star twinkled like a word unspoken. Each pattern told a story known by few. This was her moment, when the world belonged to her completely. The sun was far, the moon watched quietly, and her stars danced above in perfect stillness. There was no sound, only the hush of her breath and the cold beauty of her endless sky. Nyx, the one who came with silence, moved across the heavens without pause. She was the space between light and darkness, the breath before dawn. She touched every corner of the world, not with fire or thunder, but with stillness. She rode her chariot through the highest places, crossed the river that circled the earth, and watched over the deep places no light could reach. Her signs were gentle, her movements slow, her presence constant. She came each evening and departed each morning, always returning, always watching, eternal as the stars she bore. And through her passing, the world remembered how to rest. In the night sky, when the moon is full and bright, its light grows so powerful that even the stars fade away in its presence. No star is seen to gleam softly in the sky when the mid-month moon rises in full glory, its silver glow casting a quiet hush across the heavens. Yet even in this brilliance, all the stars that adorn the night are held and moved by one greater force, Night herself. She is the one who wheels the stars aloft, turning the sky with a calm and eternal rhythm, placing each light in its proper path and guiding them silently through the heavens. When sorrow visited the dawn, and tears flowed from the one who brings light each morning, it was Night who felt that grief deeply. As the morning dawn wept over the body of her fallen child, the earth drank the tears like rain, and even the heavens responded to this pain. Night, as the mother of day, shared in that sorrow, and in sympathy, the sky wrapped itself in mist and cloud, hiding its stars out of respect and love for the one called the Lady of Light. In this way, the sky became a mirror of mourning, darkened not just by shadow, but by a sorrow that reached into the stars. As the sun sank once more into the stream of ocean, the wide and ever-flowing river that encircled the world, Night rose again. Dressed in sable robes, she floated upward into the sky, spreading across the vast firmament, quiet and undisturbed. She came not with fanfare, but with silence and stillness, bringing her gift to the weary, rest. Her arrival brought sleep to those burdened by grief and care, her presence a balm to minds and bodies worn by the day's toil. She moved gently across the earth, and under her cover, sorrow eased and breath became calm. From the wide river at the edge of the world, Night rose again, flooding the earth with darkness. It was not a darkness of fear, but one of peace and rhythm. Her touch marked the end of labor, the close of busy hands and restless thoughts. She did not demand silence but inspired it, as if the earth itself bowed before her in respect. In her passing, the world paused. Fields lay still, waves slowed their crash against the shore, and fires burned low. With her, toil found its end, and in her presence, even grief could sleep. But just as she rose, so too did she fall, as the sun's chariot readied to return, and the dawn stretched out its golden fingers. Night was gently pushed back. She was not banished, but returned willingly to her place beyond the veil. As the dawn rose up from the river's edge, casting light into the sky, Night slipped quietly into the realm of shadows, into the darkness beyond the world, into chaos. There she waited, still and eternal, until it was once more her time to rise. In the halls of painted stone, where the stories of gods were captured in color and shape, Night was shown again. In one vision, the boy who had taken his father's chariot, the son of the sun, was seen falling from the sky. He had dared too much, and the heavens could not hold him. And there, even in that moment of fire and fall, night was present. She drove day from the noonday sky, her veil pushing aside the brightness as the sun fell. With it came the stars pulled back into view, while the guardians of time abandoned their posts, fleeing into the dark that rose to meet them. The light withdrew, and night took her place once more. In another painting, the same dawn, mourning again over her child, asked night to come early. She begged for the cover of shadow, not just to grieve, but to protect. In answer, night came forward, soft and swift, and wrapped the world in her cloak. She did not speak or argue, but answered the call, quieting the battlefield and veiling the pain. Through her, the dawn was given space to carry her child away, hidden from sight, cradled in darkness. In yet another scene, a moment from the early life of a hero was shown. Serpents writhed and coiled, danger close and sudden. But there, again, was night. Though she was the time in which the event occurred, she was also given form. She was not invisible, but appeared as a figure, holding her own torch aloft. With it, she cast a glow not on herself, but on the scene before her. She lit the place of the struggle, not for glory, but so that the act would be seen. She bore witness to courage, to strength, to the beginning of greatness, her flame flickering not with brightness, but with meaning. In all these moments, night did not shout or demand attention. She moved with grace, answering grief with stillness, responding to chaos with calm. Her power was in her silence, in her ability to touch the world without changing its course. She held the stars, hid the sun, brought rest, allowed morning, and watched over beginnings. She guided the stars in their courses, lifted them into the sky, and then let them fade when the moon was full. Her presence was a rhythm known by all, felt in the breath before sleep, in the hush before morning. She did not come as a storm, nor as a force to be feared. She came as the pause between thoughts, the end of a long day, the gentle turning of the world toward its darker side. Her robe flowed behind her, covered in stars, her footsteps marked by dreams. She was the balance to brightness, the answer to endless motion. And when she passed, she left the world not in silence, but in peace. Her path, though quiet, was always sure, and her return, though unseen, was always certain. She was night, and the sky was her canvas. To Nyx, the goddess of night, the Orphic hymn begins with the rising smoke of torches. She is called the parent goddess, the one from whom sweet rest flows and from whom all the gods and all of mankind first came into being. In her dark embrace, both divine and mortal beings found their beginning. She is the source of the deep silence that comes with sleep, and her realm is wrapped in darkness lit only by the stars. As she moves quietly through the sky, she is attended by dreams and gentle peace. Her long hours of shadow are pleasing, as they offer relief from trouble and space for joy, surrounded by music and stillness. She moves with dark horses that carry her silently around the whole earth, a gentle rider on the path of night. She is the goddess of illusions and ghostly shapes, ruler over the flickering images seen in dreams and the quiet spaces between waking thoughts. Her power marks the boundary between light and dark, separating the natural day and giving the world its rhythm. By the will of fate, she sends light away into the deep depths of the underworld, far from where mortal eyes can reach. This task she fulfills constantly, for she is bound by necessity, a force no one can resist. This necessity wraps the world in unbreakable chains, made not of iron, but of something stronger, adamant, the unyielding material of fate itself. She is called upon in reverence, not just because she's feared, but because she is needed. She is welcomed and desired by all. Everyone, whether high or low, honors her equally. She is the gentle one, the kind one, who listens to those who pray and quietly removes the fears that creep in with the shadows of twilight. When night has passed across the world, her journey always comes to a close at the edge of the western lands near the Hesperian shore. There, with the coming of dawn, she reaches the end of her course and gives way to the rising light. Her time is never forced to end, but simply flows into the next, as the golden fingers of dawn begin to stretch out from the horizon. Her retreat is quiet, like the fading of a dream, and as she steps back into her hidden place, the world begins to stir once more. There is said to be a deep cavern, hidden in the hollow of a mountain, near the land of perpetual shadow. It lies close to where those called the Cimmerians dwell, in the farthest reaches of gloom. This cavern is home to the spirit of sleep, the child of night, and within it the light of the sun has never entered. Not in morning, not at noon, and not at evening does sunlight find its way inside. Instead, a gentle mist fills the space. The air is heavy and dim, a twilight that never changes. In this place, silence is absolute. No voice is raised, and even the sound of footsteps is swallowed. A single stream flows there, Lethe, the river of forgetfulness. Its water moves slowly over smooth stones, whispering just enough to soothe the mind. At the entrance of this cavern grow thick patches of poppies and countless herbs. From these, night gathers their essence, creating a soft, sweet mixture that brings sleep to the world. She takes this infusion and sprinkles it across the darkening land, spreading rest over every living thing. With her touch, eyes close, minds quiet, and breath slows. Even the wind seems to settle beneath her hand. This is how she brings calm to the world, not by force, but by stillness. When she walks across the earth, she wears a crown not of gold, but of poppies, those flowers of sleep that bind the mind in dreams. Behind her trail the spirits of dreams, her silent followers, drifting through the air and into the minds of sleepers. Their movements are soft and uncertain, like fog. With her, they move from house to house, from field to forest, bringing visions that flicker behind closed eyes. She moves with them, never hurried, always sure, and the world accepts her presence without question. In the hush of the evening, when all becomes quiet, she is honored in small ways. Even the rooster who wakes the morning with his crow was once offered in sacrifice, so that he would not interrupt her peace too soon. The goddess of night was given this gift, not as a demand but as a recognition that her hours must be protected, her silence not broken without cause. She who gives peace must be left undisturbed until her journey is complete. But her reign is not without end. As the stars begin to fade and the sky begins to lighten, her power gently withdraws. The stars that burn brightly now shine faintly in the sinking sky. They fall back with her, their fires dimming as morning arrives. The one called Phosphorus, the morning star, rises last, bringing the new day in its wake. And so night, vanquished but never defeated, draws her fires back into herself, retreating until the sun once more sets and her path is clear again. Sometimes she slows her course across the sky, pausing in her car as if reluctant to leave the world too soon. This hesitation is not from weakness, but from care, a willingness to grant a little more time to those who still need rest or comfort. And when she returns, she brings the stars once more, welcoming them back into the heavens as signs for all to see. There are moments when even the powers of magic wait upon her, When spells are spoken under her cover, she listens. As one moved through the dark night, calling upon old forces, night watched from above. Her shade grew denser, as if to hide the secret rites, and she wheeled her shadow more slowly, drawing it over the earth like a curtain. Her presence made the unseen stronger and protected what the sun might reveal too harshly. There were times when even the day felt her, when something dark rose from below, from the depths where curses dwell. Night moved between the world and the sun, casting her thick cloud across the sky. She did not challenge the day, but she knew when her shadow was needed. She stepped between the light and the world, not to bring fear, but to balance, to calm, and to shield. She is night, the one who holds sleep and dreams, the one who hides sorrow and grants peace. Her journey begins with dusk and ends at dawn. She moves through silence and stars, poppies and mist, shadows and stillness. And through her passage, the world remembers how to rest. Startled, the shining steeds of the sun had halted their swift course as the sky darkened and the great transition began. It was the moment when sleep, the quiet force that follows behind dusk, took the reins of night's chariot and began to guide her shadowy steeds across the heavens. Behind him came the soft stillness of the world, wrapped in the presence of night, who had already begun to draw a veil over the last light of the sun. Her dewy cloak, moist with the breath of twilight, spread slowly over the land, casting a shadow so gentle and vast that even the hills seemed to exhale and settle into peace. With the passing of light, the sun gave way to the soft dominion of night. Beneath her rule in the west, her course having already begun to bend, the stars, bright companions of her quiet reign, prepared to rise. As soon as the sun dipped below the sea's horizon, driven forward by the hand of the ocean goddess who welcomed it back into its resting place, the eastern sky held its breath. In this pause, night stepped forward, turning the wheel of time from day into darkness. She came not with force, but with certainty, laying her quiet hand upon the sky and the sea and the world between. Night arrived to calm the restlessness of mortals. She descended with kindness, bringing rest not only to men, but to the creatures that roamed the wild. Under her dusky shroud, minds found peace, and even the fiercest animals gave in to stillness. The heavens were cloaked in silence, and under her presence, the sky itself seemed to hold its breath. Her passage did not stir alarm. It brought with it comfort, as though all living things remembered something ancient and eternal. She came to all with a gentle touch, and with that touch, sleep followed. Tonight, the one who covers the toiling earth and the high heavens alike, the poet once lifted his voice. She who sends the stars into their courses and watches their roaming paths. She who eases the burden of thought and quiets the noise of the day, until the new sun comes with its golden light to stir life once more. She, the kindly one, is honored in timeless worship. In return, the people promise her the offerings of dark-horned bulls, carefully chosen and kept in beauty for her alone. Fires rise in her name, and through their crackle and smoke, her presence is praised. Milk, fresh and white, is poured as tribute, falling upon the sacred fire as the scent of sacrifice rises to her dark realm. As the sun ended its journey across the sky, night gave pause to the endless running of time. She brought the comfort of stillness after movement, of silence after noise. Her arrival was not abrupt but flowed naturally, as if the world sighed and accepted her presence. She brought lightened dreams, and with her, the world entered the threshold of morning's edge. Night opened the gates of dreams, those silent doors through which visions pass, and released them to wander the minds of sleepers. From those gates came figures and stories, flickers of memory and hope, shaped in shadow and glimmer, dancing in the soft space between sleep and thought. As the sun's chariot turned downward, its golden wheels departing the sky, silent night rose. She leapt into the air from the edge of the world, a high and tapering figure made not of flesh, but of soft shadow. Around her flowed the robe of stars, glittering and wide, stitched with the endless lights that would guide the night sky. She wrapped the heavens in her cloak, placing each star in its place, pulling the night upward until even the moon felt at ease in its silver rise. In the west, as the sun began to fall, eyes turned skyward. The God who ruled the world looked to the horizon and waited. He watched for the evening star, the one that signaled night's coming. With it, her arrival would mark the time for hidden things to move, for sleep to fall, and for dreams to take hold. There were prayers offered to her in whispers, calls for her to come quickly, to lift her torch and begin the night's path. She was called to guide the one who wandered the shadowed hours, the figure of wine and madness, through the illumination of her stars. Night, ever silent, brought her own color to the west, drawing it over the world like a curtain of deep shadow. Her cloak, heavy with stars, cut through the fading blue and replaced it with a gentle black, turning the dome of the sky into a map of glimmering lights. She did not just dim the world, she transformed it. What once was gold became silver, and what once was bright became hushed. With her, the world softened, and everything beneath her shade took on a gentler form. When she covered the earth, she did so fully. Her shadows did not miss a corner. They reached from mountain to shore, from forest to field. Her silence filled the air, and her presence wrapped the sleeping world. Beneath her dark shades, all life slowed. Breathing deepened, footsteps softened, voices quieted. In her care, rest came not only to people, but to the earth itself. Her time was sacred to those who worked with mystery. In the stillness of her darkest hours, when the moon was high and the stars hung motionless, the ones who knew ancient songs and hidden ways raised their arms to the sky. They called upon her to bless their rites, to witness their magic. With the world silent around them, they stepped barefoot on dewy ground, circled by herbs and marked by whispered names. They turned and turned again, washed by moonlight and sprinkled by the silence of stars. Night watched without judgment, her face unseen, her torch glowing in shadow. She did not interfere, but she allowed. She did not command, but she embraced. She gave her stillness freely, and her watchers, those who dared to move beneath her, knew to tread with care. For while she brought peace, she also held secrets. Her cloak did not only comfort, it also concealed, and within that concealment, dreams rose, magic stirred, and the breath of the world slowed. Night was not a moment, nor just a time. She was a presence, a breath that moved through the world, a pause between beginnings and endings. Her horses drew her slowly across the sky, guided by hands unseen, leaving no mark and making no sound. But all things felt her, all things moved in her rhythm. And when her course ended, and the eastern sky began to glow once more, she did not resist. She withdrew slowly, softly, back into the hidden place beyond the stars. And the world, having rested in her shadow, opened its eyes once again. Then kneeling on the hard and stony ground beneath the open sky, the voice rose in solemn invocation. O night, mother of mysteries, came the call, rising to the heavens. echoing softly beneath the vast dome of stars. She who was firstborn of the world, she who cloaked the earth in stillness, was summoned not with force, but with reverence. Around the one who spoke, the air seemed to still, the wind paused, and the golden stars above glimmered as if listening. The prayer continued, not only to night, but also to those lights that kept her company, those golden stars that turned silently in her endless sky. The voice called also upon the three-formed goddess, she who walked between earth, sea, and sky. Then the earth was named not as ground alone, but as a power in itself, provider of potent herbs, the silent giver of roots drawn up by the witch's hand. And again, with rising strength, the call was sent out to all the gods of night, asking that they now be near, that they now hear. The words that followed were shaped not only by voice, but by belief. Through this speech, the one who called upon them sought to draw forth power. Power to stir the deep earth until it groaned, power to call up the long-buried spirits from their tombs, power to awaken the dead, to disturb the stillness that night herself had placed over the land. And then the moon was spoken to, not in welcome, but in command. She who illuminated the night with her silver light now was banished, her power pushed aside. It was said that even when she trembled in the sky, it was the clang of bronze that calmed her. But under the spell that was being cast, even she would be forced to retreat. Even the chariot of the sun, driven by the brightest god of day, would pale, and the rosy-fingered dawn would falter in the face of poison and power summoned in the depths of midnight. Elsewhere, the same voice, belonging to another but speaking the same sacred names, scattered her potions. With hands both precise and trembling, she sprinkled evil herbs in a circle, drawn not only to shape space but to command it. The air grew heavier. She spoke to night again, calling not only the goddess herself, but all those who walked with her, those gods of shadow, born from chaos and buried in darkness. Her cries rang long, drawn out into the silence, and her cries were not soft. They were wails of command, filled with need and dread and power. As the words spilled forth, the world reacted. The trees, ancient and rooted, shifted and moved, not by wind, but by something deeper. The ground groaned, as if waking from an ancient sleep. The grass lost its color. The very earth itself began to bleed as crimson drops soaked the soil. Stones cracked, then moaned, then roared. Dogs howled in fear and confusion. From the earth came crawling black serpents, their tongues tasting the air, drawn forth by the rites. Spirits, pale and voiceless, rose into the sky. They did not speak, but drifted, silent reminders that what was buried could still be called. On the banks of a river far from the cities of men, another woman walked alone. She turned toward her homeland's flowing stream and began the motions of another sacrifice. This one was not of peace or joy, but was given to night, the one who brings terror. Her steps were slow and her words were ancient. Her hands bled from the thorned plants she had gathered. Her face held no expression. This rite was not a celebration, but an offering made from desperation and knowledge of what must be done. Night was not only a comfort, she was also a gatekeeper, and this path was one walked by those who dared ask her for more. There were places where night was not just spoken of, but honored in form. On a citadel raised high above the land, the stone bore the weight of a temple. In the city of Megara, upon the ancient heights still called by the name of an old king, there was a sanctuary for those who ruled the shadows. There stood a temple built for the god of wine, but not in his usual form. He was honored here in his night aspect, the part of him that wandered beneath stars, laughing in darkness. Nearby stood a sanctuary for the one who turned hearts toward love, and not far from that, an oracle. This oracle did not answer in the name of the sun or sky, but in the name of night. It was her voice that came through the signs. It was her guidance that was sought in the quiet hours. The people came not just to speak, but to listen to the silence she gave. There was also a place for the king of the gods, though his temple had no roof. In this open space the stars shone down freely, and their light was thought to be his gaze. In that same sacred space were carved images of healing, placed in honor of those who could mend the body and soothe the mind. Yet it was Night who watched over all of it. Her presence felt not in statues, but in the deep silence between breath and thought. In Rome, far from the hills of Greece, her worship still lived. On the 9th day of May, an old rite was performed. It was not for the gods of thunder or war, but for Night and those who walked with her. This rite was called Lemuria, a time to honor the mute dead. It was performed at night under her sky, and through it the spirits were remembered, their silence respected. They were called not with fire, but with offerings, soft and somber. In one house, a vow was made. Through all the cycles of the year, Night would be honored there. Every season would bring sacrifice. Black bulls, chosen carefully, would be offered in her name. Their blood would feed the flames of fire, lit by hands that knew the old ways. Milk would be poured, not for thirst, but for reverence. And in that house, through every turning of time, Night would be remembered, not with fear, but with awe. She was more than a shadow. She was presence. She was pause. She was the one who ruled the silence, who whispered through the stars, who watched without blinking. She was Night, and those who understood her name did not forget. They offered, they prayed, they listened, and she, silent and vast, watched forever.